Our big office furniture project is still progressing, and we've been using it as an opportunity to talk about ways to reduce the chances of error that may creep into any project, but they can be especially problematic in big projects when we work on them in our small shops, and that can make life really difficult. One of the most important factors in reducing error is to set up your machines accurately for each cut. Some folks discuss this subject and they talk in terms of initial setup, which is very important. But it's not just about making sure your fences are square and your cutters are dialed in at first. You also have to consider repeatability. I may be able to dial in the perfect setup with scraps and test cuts, but what if I find that I have to go back to settings that I used before later, maybe because I didn't make enough of a certain part or I ruined one and now I need to remake it? How can I ensure that the profile is exactly the same or the joinery matches perfectly? Well, sometimes you can retrieve your test piece and use that to return the blade or the bit or the fence to the same position. But this isn't always perfectly accurate, and those small differences can cause big problems. So today we'll discuss not only how to set up your machines accurately the first time, but how you may record and return to those settings with a high level of accuracy later. Let's begin with your milling machines. A jointer can be a frustrating tool to use if it's not properly set up. Of course, this begins with the fence. It may have been square on your last project, but that does not mean it's still square now. You should check it every time you use it for edge jointing. And because the machine's vibrations may cause it to shift over time, you might recheck that fence after 5 or 10 minutes of steady use. Another thing that's worth checking from time to time is the level of the outfeed table. A digital gauge such as this one is my tool of choice for this task because not only is it accurate, but as you're going to see, it's useful for many other tasks in the shop. Make sure that the cutters are no higher than the outfeed table at their apex. Even a slight difference can cause enough snipe to make sanding more of a chore. Likewise, your planer must be properly set up. If you're unable to adjust your machine to eliminate snipe, you may have to add an extra 6 inches or so to the ends of your workpieces so you can trim the snipe off later. The depth of your planer's cut is another critical factor. Keeping all your stock of the same thickness, such as a precise 3/4 of an inch, will pay off throughout the project. For example, if I know all of my stock is exactly 3/4 of an inch thick, well, I can easily set up a dado stack to cut a 3/4 inch groove. I can easily divide that 3/4 in half to make a lap joint. I can divide it in thirds to make a tenon. These tasks become more difficult if some boards are 23/32 and others are 48/64. A digital readout makes a great addition to a planer. This one in particular is made for the popular DeWalt 734 and 735 machines. I'll link to that below this video if you have one of those machines. Another option is a simple digital caliper. I like this one in particular because I can adjust the level of the readout. I don't always want readings in 128ths of an inch. That can be a little confusing sometimes. But on this caliper, I can restrict it to a more manageable 32nd of an inch. Router table setups are critical as well. Even a small difference in fence position or bit height can change a profile or create poorly fitting joinery. That's why I'm a big fan of digital height gauges here. They make it easy to set a bit to a precise height, and they make that height perfectly repeatable. For example, I can record the height of a profiled bit. Then, if I have to make an extra workpiece later, I can get right back to that same position and my profile will match. Of course, the height of the bit isn't the only consideration at the router table. The position of the fence is equally critical, so I'll often measure and record that as well. If you don't have a digital gauge, you may save a scrap of wood with the profile on it to repeat your setup. I've had mixed success with this when it comes to accuracy, but the biggest problem is I lose the scraps by the end of the project. A digital reading can be recorded in a notebook or on your shop drawings and kept for months if need be. Another low-tech option for saving a fence setting is a piece of tape. It won't last long, but it may stay there until the end of the project. The table saw is the workhorse of most workshops. An accurate setup here is also critical to successful projects. Again, I like to use a digital gauge to record and repeat blade height adjustments. I have a scratch across my throat insert that helps me find the apex of the blade quickly so I can take those readings. Fence settings are more difficult to repeat. If you're fortunate enough to own a saw stop cabinet saw, there is a fairly inexpensive aftermarket digital readout available for the fence. It's not from SawStop, it's from chipsfly.com. This is amazingly accurate for day-to-day cuts, but it really pays off when I find that I needed 5 3-inch workpieces instead of the 4 I cut before I moved my fence. The readout puts me right back in the same fence position much more precisely than a typical cursor in my eyeballs can. Again, when you can keep a record of these settings, it becomes much easier to make an extra project part should you screw something up later. I'll link to this digital readout below this video. Unfortunately, it won't work with many saws other than the SawStop ICS and PCS models. It won't work with their contractor saw. However, some people have adapted it to fit on at least one Grizzly and one Laguna table saw, so you can check that out. A low-tech option for saving a table saw fence position is a stop block clamped to the fence rail. This only works if you know ahead of time that you'll need to return to that position, and it will restrict your fence movement to only one direction as long as it's there. But it can be very handy if you just need to move your fence out of position briefly and return to it afterward, or you need to switch back and forth between 2 fence positions. Table saw bevel cuts can be difficult to set because the scale on the front of the saw isn't very accurate. For 45-degree bevels, the body of the combination square will do the trick, but this requires that your throat plate be adjusted perfectly even with the top of the saw. A digital angle cube, on the other hand, can be zeroed out on the saw's top and then used to tilt the blade to any angle, regardless of your throat plate. And again, this setting is easily recordable and repeatable. Of course, none of these settings matter if the saw itself is not properly aligned, including making sure both the blade and the fence are parallel to the miter slots, as well as other adjustments that need to be made to a table saw. We have a whole tutorial about how to do this, which I'll link to below this video if you care to watch. Accurate machine setups are critical to successful projects. If you can set your tools precisely and return to those settings should you need to later, you'll save yourself a lot of frustration. See you next time. Digital tools make woodworking easier and more precise, and they aren't as expensive as they used to be, at least not at the Craftsman Gallery. They have a full range of eye-gauging digital tools for every type of woodworking task, and by supporting them, you're also supporting us. So please use the link below this video to check them out today. Wait, don't go yet. If you're new here, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. I would really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up, or better yet, leave us a comment. I always read them. And be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. It's always packed with tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker.